"Wait outside, Ape." The command cracked across the terminal like a whip, sharp enough to turn heads away from flight monitors and half-finished coffees. For one breathless second, the airport's hum of rolling suitcases and muffled announcements collapsed into silence. She stood there, white blazer crisp against the glass and steel, handbag steady at her side. Her face didn't flicker, no flinch, no stumble. Just a stillness, so deliberate it cut deeper than any outburst could. Opposite her, the uniformed gate agent held her palm high, a wall of flesh and disdain. Scarf knotted red, white, blue around her throat, voice edged with authority she had no right to wield. Behind her, a manager shifted his weight, lips pressed thin. A few steps back, travelers froze in place. One man's jaw fell open. A woman clutched her tote closer. Another raised her phone halfway before lowering it again, torn between fear and fury. This wasn't procedure, it was spectacle, and everyone knew it. The insult lingered in the air like smoke, impossible to swallow. It wasn't just an order to move, it was a sentence, designed to exile her from the space she already had every right to occupy. But she didn't move. Her eyes locked forward, steady as marble, her breath calm, measured. A quiet power radiated from her posture, as if the floor beneath her heels belonged more to her than to the airline logo glowing on the departure screens above. The agent's hand trembled slightly, though her words had landed like a slap. She hadn't expected the woman in front of her to hold the silence. She hadn't expected composure. That composure made the cruelty louder. Passengers shifted. A man in a denim jacket muttered under his breath. A college student, earbuds dangling, whispered, "Did she just say that?" An older couple at the back glanced at each other, shame flickering across their faces. Cameras itched in pockets, wanting to be raised. Still, the woman in white didn't break. And that's where this story begins. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. Because the silence after that slur wasn't weakness. It was calculation. She had heard words like these before at 19 inches a hotel lobby, at 28 at a boardroom door, at 35 inches an investor's lounge. Each time, someone tried to mark her as less. Each time, she carried the wound but built higher walls of power. And here, in an airport where time is measured in boarding calls and gate changes, she was about to teach them what it meant to misjudge her. The agent smirked, mistaking stillness for surrender. The crowd watched, mistaking quiet for defeat. But the woman in the white suit wasn't defeated. She was waiting. And in less than 1 minute, the entire management of this airline would learn exactly who they had told to wait outside. Her name was Naomi Ellison, 42 years old, CEO of Ellison Global Holdings. But in this airport terminal, at Gate 14, she was just another passenger in line. No entourage, no glossy magazine cover announcing her worth, just a white suit, a leather bag, and eyes that had seen this scene play out more times than she cared to count. The choice was intentional. She could have walked in with an assistant carrying documents, security at her side, and the staff would have scrambled. They would have offered champagne, rolled out courtesy, smiled until their faces cracked. But Naomi wanted the truth, and truth only shows up when power hides. So she dressed down from what power usually looks like. No diamond rings, no logo-drenched handbag, just quiet elegance, calculated understatement. To the untrained eye, she looked like a woman on business travel, maybe middle management, maybe a consultant with a laptop full of slides. Ordinary, forgettable. That was the test. Because Ellison Global wasn't just an investor. It was the majority owner of this airline. The company she had built from scratch now owned 49% of the very carrier whose employee had just called her an ape. And she wasn't here by accident. Rumors had reached her office, complaints ignored, incidents buried, passengers of color pushed to the side. She had heard whispers of policy used as a weapon. Her legal team flagged patterns. Her PR team advised caution. But Naomi didn't believe in reports alone. She believed in first-hand truth. So she booked this flight herself. No corporate ID, no early boarding privilege, a standard ticket, paid in full, under her real name. She wanted to see how they treated someone who didn't walk in with a crown. Now she had her answer. The insult had landed exactly as she feared, and the silence that followed told her even more. Behind her, a child tugged at his mother's sleeve. Why did she say that to the lady? His mother hushed him, cheeks burning. A man in a blazer checked his watch, pretending not to hear. Everyone felt the wrongness, but no one stepped forward. That, too, Naomi knew, was part of the truth. She remembered another airport, years ago. She was 26, rushing for a connection after closing her first $1 million deal. She wore flats, carried a cheap tote, and the gate agent told her she must be lost. This is business class. Coach is down there. She hadn't argued then. She had swallowed the slight and taken her seat, but she never forgot. That wound became blueprint. And here it was again. Different airport, different decade, same prejudice wrapped in a different uniform. Naomi shifted her weight slightly, not in discomfort but in grounding. The cool tile beneath her heels reminded her. This was her ground, whether they saw it or not. The agent still held her hand out, fingers stiff, face taut with false authority. The manager now hovered closer, clearly deciding whether to call security. Naomi said nothing. Not yet. Silence was a blade, and she knew how to wield it. In the corner, a young woman, early 20s, uniform slightly looser, trainee badge pinned crooked bit her lip. Her eyes flicked from Naomi to the agent, then back. She knew something wasn't right, but fear anchored her to the floor. She would matter later. Not now. Naomi inhaled once, deeply, exhaled. She had walked into this moment on purpose. And now, the test had begun. The gate agent's hand didn't drop. If anything, it rose higher, palm stiff as a barrier Naomi wasn't allowed to cross. Her voice sharpened, slicing through the silence. "Ma'am, this area is restricted. Step back. You don't belong here." The words carried more than instruction. They carried ownership, as if the tiled floor and glowing departure screens were hers to guard. Naomi's gaze didn't waver. Her silence seemed to irritate the woman more. From behind the counter, a man appeared. Late 30s, suit jacket too tight across his shoulders, badge swinging from a lanyard. Martin Hale, terminal supervisor. He strode forward with the air of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "What's the problem here?" His voice was low but carried. The agent gestured at Naomi, hand still up. "Tried to access priority boarding. No status, no upgrade. Possible fraudulent ticket. Possible." The word slithered across the air like a presumption given authority. Martin scanned Naomi briefly, eyes darting from her suit to her shoes to the leather bag at her side. His lips pressed thin. Then came the inevitable line. "You'll need to wait outside, ma'am. Security will handle this." Passengers shifted uncomfortably. A man in a gray hoodie muttered, "She's got a ticket. I saw it." The supervisor ignored him. Naomi slid her boarding pass forward again, calm, steady. Martin didn't touch it. Instead, he glanced at the agent. "Mark it invalid. We've seen this scam before." Scam. The word landed like spit on the floor. The trainee at the corner flinched, her lips parting as if to speak. But she stayed frozen, fear pressing down like a weight across her chest. Naomi still hadn't spoken. She let them dig deeper, the shovel clanging against their own reputations. The gate agent pulled a small device from her pocket, scanned Naomi's pass with a flourish. The screen blinked green for half a second valid, but she snapped it shut before anyone else could see. "Invalid," she announced, her voice loud enough to echo. A ripple passed through the bystanders. Some raised eyebrows. A middle-aged man in line whispered, "I saw it flash green." His companion shook her head, murmuring, "Don't get involved." Martin tapped the desk twice. A signal. From the far end of the gate, two uniformed security officers began walking over, radios clipped to their shoulders, footsteps heavy with authority. The gate agent folded her arms, triumphant. "See? This will be handled properly now." Naomi's stillness remained. To the untrained eye, it looked like submission. To anyone watching closely, it was control absolute and deliberate. Her eyes flicked once to the security guards, then back to Martin. No fear, no panic, just calculation. In the silence, her memory cut sharp again. 29, Chicago, boarding a flight to London. Her first international negotiation. She held a first-class ticket. The agent laughed, told her, Those seats aren't for people like you. She had swallowed the humiliation then, but turned it into fuel. That fuel had built empires. That fuel had bought airlines. And now, standing here, she could smell the same arrogance recycled, just dressed in a new uniform. The guards closed in. Radios crackled. The crowd leaned in, anticipation humming like electricity before a storm. Naomi shifted her stance slightly, adjusting her grip on the leather bag. Not in fear, in readiness, because the escalation wasn't theirs. It was hers, and they had just walked straight into it. The officers arrived like shadows, navy uniforms pressed sharp, radios hissing static. One placed a hand near his belt, the other scanned the crowd as if a riot might break out at any second. The gate agent smirked, arms crossed, her victory already imagined. Martin Hale stepped closer, tone clipped. "Ma'am, if you don't comply, you will be escorted out." Naomi didn't move, didn't blink. She stood as if anchored to the floor itself. The calm center of a storm she refused to fuel. The crowd noticed. A boy in a baseball cap tugged his father's sleeve. "She's not even saying anything." The father swallowed, uneasy. "Exactly. Martin's voice grew harsher, mistaking silence for weakness. "Do you hear me? Step back. Now." But Naomi's silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Every second she didn't respond, the tension in the room thickened. Every pause forced their words to echo louder, exposing the prejudice baked into every syllable. The agent tapped the desk with manicured nails, impatience clawing at her. "You people always think you can push past the rules." That phrase, "you people," it landed heavy, undeniable. A few passengers winced. A man near the window shook his head, muttering, "That's too far." Still Naomi said nothing. Her eyes were steady, her breathing controlled, her shoulders square. She wasn't defending herself. She was letting them reveal themselves. The security officers exchanged glances. One cleared his throat. "Ma'am, please cooperate." Even his tone carried doubt now. Naomi finally shifted only slightly. She placed her boarding pass flat on the counter, her hand resting lightly over it. A deliberate gesture. "I have nothing to hide." But she didn't speak. Her silence pressed harder than any argument could. The crowd grew restless. The trainee in the corner, badge crooked, nerves trembling, looked around desperately. She bit her lip, eyes glistening. Her voice nearly escaped her throat, but fear still sealed it shut. Naomi's memory drifted again, uninvited but sharp. 16 years old, Charlotte. She had been waiting in a hotel lobby for her parents, dressed in her Sunday best. A clerk had walked up, told her the area was for guests only, and escorted her outside. The shame had burned, but the fire it lit had never gone out. That day, she promised herself, she would never again let silence be forced on her. Now, she was choosing silence because this time, it was her weapon. Martin mistook it for fragility. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Security will drag you out if I have to say it again." Naomi's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something sharper, restraint. A line drawn. The air shifted. The bystanders felt it. Silence wasn't emptiness anymore. It was power coiling, waiting. The agent huffed, frustrated. "Fine, call it in. Fraudulent passenger, refusing orders." Her voice rose, loud enough for the terminal beyond to hear. A ripple of gasps followed. Naomi remained unmoved. The stillness was deliberate. It wasn't absence of action. It was the prelude to it. And for those watching closely, it was becoming clear. The woman in white wasn't cornered. She was calculating. The silence couldn't last forever. Not in an airport, not in a crowd. From the middle of the boarding line, a phone rose hesitant at first, then steady. A young man in a denim jacket, maybe mid-20s, thumb trembling over the record button. The red light blinked alive. He angled the lens carefully, capturing Naomi, the agent, the supervisor, the looming officers. "Don't film this," Martin snapped, voice cracking, but it was too late. The eye of the camera had already opened, and once open, it doesn't close. The young man didn't lower it. His voice, quiet but firm, broke the air. "Why are you treating her like this? She hasn't even spoken." The question sliced through the room sharper than any insult. Passengers stirred, eyes darting between Naomi and the staff. The agent scoffed. "Stay out of this. She doesn't belong here." Another witness joined. A woman with gray streaks in her hair, rolling suitcase at her side, stepped forward slightly. "I saw her ticket scan green. You shut it too fast." Her tone was calm, but the tremor of indignation rippled underneath. Naomi didn't turn. She didn't need to. She felt the shift in the air the moment when silence stopped being hers alone and became shared. The trainee at the corner gripped her clipboard tighter, chest heaving, her lips parted. This time, words slipped out, barely above a whisper. She's telling the truth." It was quiet, almost lost in the murmur, but it mattered. Those who heard turned toward her, eyes widening. The agent's head snapped around, glare sharp enough to cut. "Not another word, rookie." The girl froze, swallowed, then shrank back. But the seed was planted. Doubt had entered the room. The crowd swelled closer. No longer passive observers. Murmurs grew louder. "This isn't right. She's calm. Why are they escalating? Unbelievable." The officers hesitated, glancing at each other. Authority thrives on compliance. But compliance was cracking. Naomi stood unmoved, letting the storm build around her. Every witness that spoke, every phone that rose, every murmur of dissent, she absorbed it all without a single word. Her restraint had drawn the truth into daylight. The man with the phone cleared his throat, louder now. "If this goes online, it's not going to look good for you." Martin's face flushed. "Put that down, or you'll be escorted out too." But the man didn't flinch. His phone held steady, lens unwavering. Behind him, another screen lit up. Then another. Red dots multiplied like fireflies in the dark. The narrative was slipping from their grip. The agent's smirk faltered. For the first time, her confidence cracked. She looked to Martin for reinforcement, but his jaw was tight. His eyes darting nervously to the recording phones. Naomi remained perfectly still. She hadn't lifted a hand, hadn't raised her voice. Yet the balance of the room was shifting, inch by inch, away from them and toward her. The witnesses had seen enough, and once people see, they cannot unsee. The hum of phones recording thickened the air, a quiet rebellion flickering red across a dozen screens. Every second of silence cut deeper into Martin's authority, and he knew it. So he doubled down. He stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the tile, and jabbed a finger toward Naomi. "This woman is not a passenger. She's a fraud. Do you hear me? Fraud." The word cracked across the terminal like a gavel. Gasps rippled. A mother shielded her daughter's ears, though the child's wide eyes had already absorbed the venom. Naomi's stillness didn't break. Her chin lifted slightly, enough to meet his glare head-on. Martin turned to the officers, voice rising. "Escort her out now. She's wasting everyone's time." One of the guards hesitated. "Sir, she hasn't—" "Do it," Martin barked, his authority fraying into desperation. The gate agent chimed in, her voice loud, cutting. "She came here trying to slip into priority boarding with a fake ticket. People like her always pull this stunt. People like her." The phrase dropped heavy, undeniable. The young man with the phone muttered, "You said that already." Everyone here heard the scanner go green. The older woman with the suitcase stepped forward again, firmer this time. "You're lying. That pass was valid." Martin spun on her, eyes blazing. "You want to be removed too? Keep talking." "Oh." The threat hung, brittle and sharp. But the woman didn't move. She simply shook her head, disgust plain on her face. Naomi inhaled once, slow and measured. She had seen this tactic before: raise your voice, drown the truth. It worked on the unprepared, not on her. Her silence was louder than their shouting. The agent slammed Naomi's boarding pass onto the counter, edges bent, paper crumpled under her palm. "Invalid. That's final." The crowd murmured, restless. "She hasn't said a word. They're bullying her. This is wrong." The trainee couldn't hold back anymore. She took a step forward, voice trembling but audible. "Her name is on the manifest. I saw it earlier when I checked." "Enough," Martin roared, face reddening. "One more word, and you're out of this job." The girl froze, her courage collapsing under his fury. She looked at Naomi, apology in her eyes. Naomi gave her a single, almost imperceptible nod acknowledgement, without expectation, because Naomi didn't need rescue. She needed witnesses. Martin straightened his jacket, glaring at the crowd. This woman doesn't belong in this section, in this cabin, or on this flight. She is not our client. Those words landed harder than the slur before. They weren't just insults now. They were a denial of identity, a public erasure. The crowd recoiled, phones lifted higher, whispers surged louder. Naomi stood as if carved from stone, her presence unmoved, unshaken. Her silence was no longer emptiness. It was resistance, burning cold and deliberate. Martin didn't see it. He mistook her calm for defeat. He thought his volume could cage her. He had no idea, because every word he shouted wasn't burying her. It was burying him. The tension snapped, not with a scream, but with the sound of paper tearing. The gate agent gripped Naomi's boarding pass in both hands and ripped it straight down the middle. The paper shredded with a hiss, fragments fluttering onto the counter like ash. "There," she spat. "Problem solved. You're not going anywhere." Gasps erupted. A man near the window cursed under his breath. Someone else whispered, "She just destroyed a valid ticket." The camera zoomed in, red dots glowing brighter, capturing every shred of humiliation they thought they could impose. Naomi didn't move, not an inch. Her eyes tracked the torn halves of her pass sliding across the counter, then lifted back to the agent's face with the calm of someone who had already seen the end of this play. Martin Hale seized the moment, voice booming. "Security, detain her. Call the police. We're dealing with a fraud case." The word police jolted the crowd. Passengers stiffened. Phones raised higher. The murmur rose into a low chorus of disbelief. A teenager muttered, "She didn't do anything." His mother clutched his arm, whispering, "This is disgusting." The trainee's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes darted from Naomi to the agent to the torn pass. "That's not policy," she whispered, barely audible, but her shaking hands betrayed her fury. The officers stepped closer, radios buzzing. One reached toward his mic. "Dispatch, this is..." Naomi lifted a hand. Not high, not aggressive, just enough. The gesture was precise, quiet, deliberate. It stopped him mid-sentence. Her voice finally broke the silence, low, even, unshaken. "You just made this bigger than you can handle." The words carried weight, not volume, enough to silence the murmur for a heartbeat. Martin scoffed, trying to mask the tremor in his chest. "Is that a threat?" Naomi's eyes locked on his, steady as steel. "Number A promise." The crowd rippled again, energy shifting. They could feel it. The storm wasn't hers anymore, it was theirs, too. The agent, flushed and rattled, shoved the torn pieces of the pass into the trash. "Call it in now," she barked to the officers. "Get her out of here before she makes a bigger scene." But the scene wasn't hers to make. It was theirs. Phones now filled the air like lanterns, dozens of tiny witnesses burning bright, every angle covered, every insult immortalized. Naomi lowered her hand back to her side, posture composed, eyes unblinking. In her stillness, the message was clear. "You've crossed the line, and lines have consequences." The officers hesitated, radios crackled, the crowd buzzed, and the humiliation the staff had tried to build for her was collapsing into something else entirely, an indictment, recorded live. The breaking point wasn't her silence. It was their arrogance. And now, the world was watching. The shredded boarding pass still drifted in the trash bin when Naomi reached into her bag and drew out her phone. One tap. No rush. No panic. The kind of movement made by someone in absolute control. The crowd leaned in. The officers paused. Even Martin faltered, his voice caught mid-command. "Carla," Naomi said softly into the line, her tone calm but sharpened like glass. On the other end, the reply came instantly, clear enough for those nearby to hear. "Yes, ma'am. Protocol 7? Naomi's eyes never left Martin's. "Activate. Timestamp everything. I want a live log of every word spoken at Gate 14. Carla didn't hesitate. "Understood. Audio is live. Security footage linked. Staff IDs cross-referenced. Do you want escalation to the board?" Naomi's lips curved just slightly. "Not yet. Let them keep talking." The room shifted. The words weren't shouted. They weren't dramatic. But they landed like a hammer. The young man with the phone muttered, Did she just say, protocol? The older woman whispered. She's not some random passenger. Martin bristled, trying to reassert dominance. Ma'am, calling your little friends won't save you. You're done here. Naomi tilted her head. Emmy? Carla's voice cut through again. Crisp. Supervisor Hale. Age 38. 3 prior complaints filed this year. All dismissed. Agent Rowe. Age 31. 2 incidents flagged for misconduct. No follow-up. Both records pulled. The crowd reacted audibly now. Gasps. Murmurs. Phone zoomed closer. Martin's face drained of color. How are you accessing that? Naomi didn't blink. You called me a fraud in front of witnesses. Now watch your own record expose you. The agent scoffed, but her voice cracked. This is absurd. She doesn't have access. Carla interrupted, louder this time. Correction. She does. Full shareholder clearance. Authority confirmed. Silence. Then a ripple. The trainee gasped, eyes wide, her hand flying to her mouth. The passengers stirred, realization dawning. The murmurs sharpened into words. She's not just a passenger. She's connected. She's in charge? Martin stammered. That's irrelevant. You don't belong at this gate. Naomi finally shifted, just a fraction closer. Her voice was steady, even colder now. I own this gate. The words landed like a verdict. The officers froze. One lowered his hand from the radio. The crowd's energy surged, disbelief mixing with satisfaction. The cameras drank in every second. Naomi lowered her phone slightly, Carla still on the line. Keep recording, she instructed. We're not finished yet. Her eyes cut back to Martin, then the agent. You wanted this confrontation. Now you have it. And when it ends, you won't just lose a passenger. You'll lose your place here permanently. The storm had shifted. Naomi was no longer standing alone against them. She was standing above them, and the counterattack had only just begun. For a long moment, the only sound in Gate 14 was the buzz of fluorescent lights and the faint echo of an overhead announcement. Flight delays, weather updates, mundane noise that suddenly felt absurd against the weight of what had just been said. I own this gate. The words hung there, heavy, unshakable. Martin laughed, but it was brittle, sharp around the edges. What kind of fantasy are you spinning? You think anyone believes that? Naomi didn't answer him. Instead, she raised her phone slightly, tapping once. Carla's voice filled the space again, clear, deliberate, undeniable. Confirmation. Miss Naomi Ellison, CEO of Ellison Global Holdings, primary shareholder of North Atlantic Airways, with 49% controlling interest. Authority to audit, suspend, or terminate management contracts in real time. Documentation is live. Oh, gasps swept the gate. A man dropped his coffee, brown liquid spreading across the tiles unnoticed. The young man with the phone whispered, Holy, she's the owner. His camera shook in his hands as he zoomed in. The trainee's breath caught audibly. I knew it, she muttered, almost to herself, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. The older woman with the suitcase stood taller now, voice firm. I told you her ticket was valid. Naomi turned her gaze back to Martin, her tone razor-sharp yet calm. You accused me of fraud. You ordered me to wait outside. You tore up my ticket. And you did it all in front of witnesses. She let the silence stretch, her eyes never leaving his. Tell me, Martin, how do you think this ends for you? His throat worked, Adam's apple bobbing. He had no answer. The gate agent tried to step in, her voice desperate. This is some trick. Some setup. But Naomi cut her off, her words measured like a blade pressed to glass. You wanted me small. You wanted me silent. You wanted me erased. Instead, you just introduced me to every passenger here, not as a stranger, not as a fraud, but as their CEO. Phones rose higher. Applause broke, not thunderous yet, but sharp, defiant claps from a handful of passengers that quickly multiplied. The security officers backed away, suddenly uncertain of their role. Their radios hissed, but neither dared speak. Naomi stood centered, the white of her suit glowing under the harsh airport lights. Her presence larger now, undeniable. You thought power wore a badge. You thought power stood behind a counter. You thought power was in your voice when you shouted. She paused, eyes sweeping the room. But power is standing still while the truth reveals itself. And now, here at Island, The applause swelled louder, echoing against glass and steel. Martin's shoulders sagged, the agent's face drained of color. Naomi's reveal was complete. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't needed to. Because when you own the room, silence is louder than any scream. The gate fell silent, except for the thrum of phone cameras capturing every heartbeat of the moment. Naomi's words still lingered. CEO, shareholder, owner, and the weight of them pressed down on everyone who had just mocked her. Martin's face had gone pale, lips twitching as if searching for an excuse that refused to come. The confidence he wore minutes ago had drained out, leaving only the shell of a man who realized the floor beneath him was gone. The agent staggered back a step, her scarf askew, eyes darting wildly between Naomi and the glowing phones aimed at her. Her smirk was gone, replaced by something closer to terror. The security officers, once rigid, shifted uneasily. One lowered his radio completely, muttering under his breath, "She really is the boss." The other gave the smallest nod and stepped back, as if distance could erase his earlier compliance. And then came the sound Naomi had expected. Applause. Not hesitant now, but rising, rolling through the gate like a wave. Passengers clapped, some cheered, others shouted phrases sharp with justice. "She's the CEO. You tore up her ticket. Unbelievable." The trainee couldn't hold back anymore. She stepped forward, tears streaking down her cheeks, her voice trembling but loud. "I saw her name in the system this morning. I knew you deleted it. I knew." The crowd gasped. Cameras swiveled toward her. Martin's head snapped, fury flashing for one desperate second before crumbling into dread. Naomi inclined her head gently toward the trainee, acknowledging her bravery. "Thank you," she said softly. The older woman with the suitcase raised her phone higher, speaking to her camera. "We're witnessing history right now. They tried to erase her, but she owns this airline. She owns them." Martin's hands shook. He fumbled with his lanyard as though the badge hanging from it might still protect him. It didn't. His own staff shifted uncomfortably behind the counter, eyes down, bodies tense, like children waiting for punishment. The applause swelled again, louder this time. A chant broke out from somewhere near the back. "Justice! Justice!" It wasn't coordinated. It wasn't planned. But it grew, fueled by the indignation of strangers united in the sight of arrogance collapsing under truth. The agent's voice cracked, desperate. "Please, I didn't know who you were." Naomi's gaze cut through her. "That's the point. You judged who I wasn't." The woman's knees buckled. She dropped into the chair behind the counter, burying her face in her hands. Martin tried one last time, voice shaking. We can fix this." But the crowd drowned him out with shouts, applause, recording. He was no longer a supervisor. He was a spectacle. Naomi didn't need to raise a hand. The collapse had already happened. The room belonged to her now. Naomi didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The silence after the applause was hers to command. She lifted her phone again, Carla's voice still waiting on the line. "Authorization required," Carla said, tone precise, ready. Naomi's gaze locked on Martin first. "Terminate Supervisor Martin Hale. Effective immediately. Disable his credentials. Escort privileges revoked." Carla's reply was swift. "Processing. Done. Access revoked." A sharp beep echoed from Martin's badge. The screen behind the counter flashed red. Access denied. Gasps. Murmurs. Phone zoomed closer. Martin's jaw dropped. He pressed the badge against the reader again, frantic. Red light. Denied. Again. Again. Denied. His shoulders slumped as the truth washed over him. He wasn't supervisor anymore. He wasn't staff. He wasn't anything. Naomi turned next to the agent, her voice cool, razor sharp. "Terminate Agent Rowe. Effective immediately. Security clearance void. Record her misconduct for legal review." Carla's voice answered, steady. "Logged. ID suspended. Rowe is locked out of the system." The agent's computer went dark in front of her, screen blinking black. Her login rejected. Her hands trembled as she tried again, to no avail. The crowd erupted in gasps, then applause. Naomi's eyes swept briefly to the trainee, the one who had spoken up. "Log her as a protected witness," Naomi instructed. Carla confirmed. "Marked. Employment secure. Witness protection active. The girl's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Tears streamed freely now, not of fear, but of relief. Naomi's gaze shifted back to the officers. You two were about to enforce an illegal order. Consider this your warning. Step aside. You answer to me now. The taller officer nodded quickly, stepping back without hesitation. The other followed, lowering his radio completely. Their authority had dissolved under the weight of hers. Martin tried to speak, voice cracking. You can't just… Naomi cut him down with a single sentence. You don't give orders anymore. You're finished. Her words landed like steel on marble. The crowd thundered applause, some passengers cheering outright. Phones tilted higher, broadcasting the collapse of arrogance into the glow of social media. Naomi inhaled once, steady, controlled. Her eyes swept the room, then returned to her phone. Carla, note this for the record. Every contract under their supervision is subject to audit, effective today. Carla replied crisply. Logged. Audit triggered. Legal notified. The passengers gasped again, a ripple of awe spreading through the gate. Naomi lowered the phone slowly, her voice carrying on its own now. They told me to wait outside. They told me I didn't belong. She glanced at Martin, at Roe, then at the stunned crowd. Now they're outside, and they'll never belong here again. The terminal exploded in applause, this time unanimous, roaring, unstoppable. The thunder of applause still echoed when Naomi lowered her phone completely. The glow of recording screens shimmered across her white suit, casting her not as a target but as a figure unshakable, untouchable. Martin stood broken, badge useless, hands trembling. The agent sat slumped, eyes glassy, computer locked into permanent black. The officers lingered at the edge, stripped of power they no longer dared to claim. Naomi turned slowly, her gaze sweeping the passengers. Every eye was on her now, not in doubt, not in mockery, but in recognition. Her voice was calm, steady, carried without force. They told me to wait outside. But power doesn't wait. Dignity doesn't wait. Justice doesn't wait. She paused, letting the words settle, letting them carve their place in memory. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought restraint meant defeat. But silence, she said, her tone sharp as glass, was my proof. My proof that arrogance always unmasks itself. The crowd erupted again, cheers, clapping, voices rising in agreement. Naomi looked once more at the fallen staff. You wanted to erase me. Instead, you erased yourselves. Her eyes lifted back to the passengers, to the glowing cameras. I don't need to record this moment. I am the result of every moment like this, and I promise you. Her words cut clean, final, unshakable. This will never be tolerated again. Not here, not anywhere I own. The chant returned louder, unstoppable now. Justice, justice. Naomi stepped forward, past the counter, past the officers, through the gate they had tried to bar her from. The crowd parted for her as if pulled by gravity itself. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her verdict had already been written. And in that terminal, under fluorescent lights and rolling cameras, everyone understood. Justice hadn't whispered. It had roared without ever raising its voice.